If you're new to the channel, my name is Voss. I'm with my friend Michael, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. First of all, how's it going, Voss?
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Yep, nice to meet you again, actually. Long time no see.
Yep. Name's Michael DeGiorgio. I'm a Corvette guy. This is my 94 C4.
Michael's got actually a 2020
Yep.
Corvette C8 that's currently 2 weeks away from something pretty ridiculous. I don't know if you want to share about it.
Yeah, sure. But, so my C8 is getting ready to be unveiled at the 2021 SEMA show here at the Toyo Tires booth in November in Las Vegas. So doing a full carbon fiber wide body on that car, and then we have some other things that you'll have to tune in to see as a little surprise, but gonna be a pretty wild build.
And so, Michael has a YouTube channel as well. You can talk about it, and I'll put it here somewhere as well.
Yeah, sure. It's MD Beyond Cars, and I do a lot of Corvette content, mostly with my C8, but every now and with this car when it is working. So yeah.
I know when you got your C8, you were probably one of the first people in our area to even have a C8 Corvette, and after, it's been gone, what now, like almost a year or something? It feels like it's been gone forever.
Yeah, so the car went out to California in April, and then I picked this up, I think, at the end of June. So that's about how long I lasted without a sports car. Yeah, don't ever do it to yourself.
So this is kind of your hold me over car until that gets back. But I mean, we were talking a little bit, it seems like you've kind of grown to really enjoy this thing, and it's quirky, it's got a lot of interesting features. What made you get a C4 Corvette?
Yeah, so basically I was looking for cheap sports cars. Obviously that's a relative term.
Cheap is non-existent today.
No, yeah, not in today's market. I mean, I was even looking at Miatas and things like that, and 100,000 mile Miatas were like $5,000. And this was
like a $1,500 car a couple years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. Exactly. So was looking at very cheap cars, and then was looking at C5 Corvettes, Porsche Boxers, things of that sort, and basically settled on C4 just kind of as an in-between. So you can get these for a couple thousand under what the C5s run at, but still have some of the performance there that those cars have too.
And you picked this thing up for around $8,000, correct?
Yeah.
120 something thousand miles, manual transmission, which is why it was probably a little more than some of your other ones you see.
Right.
I mean, that's $8,000 for a sports car is not a lot of money for, I feel like, the performance and value you get in here. We're talking 300 horsepower, about 340 foot-pounds of torque. If you got the ZR1, which is gonna be a lot more, all aluminum engine, 400 horsepower for a car from '94. I mean, that's a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, they were very capable cars, especially in their day. But even until the C5 and C5 Z06 became really popular, it was a very good autocross car, pretty competitive out there on the SCCA circuit. So the other reason I bought this car is kind of to get into motorsports at a semi-affordable price level.
Yes, that stuff gets very... Have you done much autocrossing or anything with this yet?
I've taken this one out one time.
Okay. How'd it do?
So it's hard to say. So I ended up running in one of the Optima series, which is what I thought at the time. I thought this specific event was sort of tailored to beginners. And I get there the day of, there's guys trailing their cars all the way from across the country to get to this event. It was basically a qualifying event for the Ultimate Street Car Challenge, if you're familiar with that. So like the top guys in the world, dudes with $100,000 cars that are set up and all of that. So I got my butt kicked.
But you had fun.
Had a lot of fun. And for 150 bucks or whatever it was to sign up, it's hard to beat. We got out there, and I think I got 9 runs that day, which was pretty awesome.
There you
go. So had a lot of fun with it. Would have liked to have run more this year, but this next year I'm going to hope to get out on the circuit a little bit more.
So, you know, when these came out, they were, I feel like I don't want to say head scratching is the right word, but like I would say this was a very criticized Corvette generation, because you were coming from the C3, which so many people liked. It had that, it was such a different feeling, and then you jump into this. This is not bubbly, this is boxy, this is long. This is the longest, and at the time, the longest and widest, and also most expensive Corvette to ever come out. And it was, it's 3,500 pounds. It's got that big engine in the front, and everything about this was so different. But I feel like today, as like, we're fast forward 2021, people have really grown to kind of get this has become like a niche, like little collector's item thing. It's not expensive, it's fun, and for something that can, it's got some weird quirks here and there we can get into, like you have a different, key for your opening, and then you have a different key to start it, and then you have your seat adjustments in the middle. You have essentially, to get out of this car, you were stepping over the frame rail of this vehicle, which is it's very high. It's very different. What so far, in your short time and your experience and ownership, what are some little things you've gotten into that you're like, oh, that's kind of weird, or what are some things you're like, what's this all about?
Right. So, it's kind of a funny adjustment for me going from the absolute state of the art with the C8 to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and obviously going from a mid-engine layout to a front-engine layout. Completely different car, but the first thing that stands out is the center dash on my C8 is obviously all computerized, and everything is done through a touch screen. Whereas this car, every single feature has its own button, so it's kind of a sea of buttons here. And as we were talking about off camera, it was kind of caught in the middle of the between the 80s and the 90s, where some of the modern technologies today were starting to get introduced, but maybe weren't pulled off very well. So lots of areas for things to go wrong, but you're starting to see some of the modern technologies be implemented.
I would say pretty much until the C8, maybe the C7, but really until the C8 came out, I feel like technology was the second thought. It was always performance, and that's what kind of made the value so good. Is at that money, you might not have, in the 90s, might not have a Lamborghini, might not have a Porsche or a Ferrari, but you could have just as much fun. But now with the C8, it's so different, because I feel like the tech is a lot different. It's a lot more driver-centric, the way it's set up and whatnot. But with this, I mean, with your experience, and when you went like autocross, when you went driving, like how is it around handling? How is it cornering? How does it do in those areas?
Yeah, it's again just a completely different experience. The thing I like about this car, as I'll say a compliment to my other cars, this one is just very raw. Lots of those technologies that you talk about that are more performance oriented, some of the computer assists and things of that sort don't exist on this car. It's a 6-speed obviously compared to my 8-speed DCT, so just a completely different feel there. And this car likes to kick the back tires loose too. You turn the stability off and give it a little gas, and it'll get around on you. So it's fun from that standpoint. The ride in it is very stiff. When we're out driving, you guys will hear things shaking in the background, and especially when I'm on my top in the back, you'll hear it rattling around. So it's a stiff ride, but it's a capable car in terms of cornering and things of that sort. The brakes are a pretty far step behind from what I have in the other car, but
different era, different time period.
Definitely, yeah.
You're 4 generations ago, so there's going to be things different. I think what's crazy is you're looking at a car like so we said, 3,500 curb weight, and it still had 300 horse, 340 torque. 0 to 60 happened in, it was around mid 5 seconds. That seems to me like very respectable numbers given the time period. Not to mention the practicality. I mean, you have a pretty big boot. You can fit, as GM likes to say, golf clubs. You can probably fit 2 sets of golf clubs back there. It gets pretty good gas mileage, given that it's a sports car. And overall, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just like I would say if you like you were kind of getting it for weekend cruising, something where you can have fun on, not have to worry about it, and just enjoy. I feel like it's a really good sweet spot for that, given that you can get a 6-speed manual with it. So before we get on the drive here, tell me about you've had it about 2,000-3,000 miles now you've put on it. You did a road trip with it when you first bought it, and you drove it home. How has it been in terms of reliability? Do you drive it every day? How's the maintenance been?
Yeah, so I bought this car Memorial Day weekend of this year. Flew all the way down to Tallahassee, Florida to pick it up from its second owner, who is a woman that's actually owned it since '96, so all but 2 years of its life. And basically I was buying the car sight unseen. There were very few manuals for sale across the country. This was the best of what was available to me, and I basically took a shot on it. So flew all the way down, drove it to Nashville the first night, so I think that's like 400 or 500 miles, something like that, and then drove the rest of the trip I guess Monday of Memorial Day. Had no issues with the drive back, but the car had been sitting for quite a while, and not necessarily completely static, but just didn't get driven as much as obviously I drive the car, and certainly had not been any hard driving scenarios. So we found a little bit of rust in some of the lines on the underside. We just got done installing all new stainless steel brake lines on the car, and then we had a fuel leak actually within the first couple of weeks that I had the car that was from a rusted line as well. So that's all been replaced. Besides that, we did oxygen sensors and an oil change and fluid flush, and that was about it. So it has had its quirks and setbacks, but right now I've been enjoying driving the car every day actually. It is a fair weather car. All the seals are brand new, but the windows need to be adjusted to fit the new seals. So that's something I'll do this winter and get it to the point where I can actually drive it in the rain. But as a daily driver, when we have good weather, it's a fun car to. So
really, other than, we'll just say, some maintenance due to its age and condition, it really hasn't been all that troublesome for you. My M3 has like the weakest like non-sports car filling clutch ever, and driving
so
anything else that is,
it depresses like all the way at the top. You'll find you're in gear actually.
Okay.
It's all the way at the top.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I was like, oh, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, it takes quite a while to get used to.
That is different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally all the way at the top, which your car is probably super sensitive.
It's every step of the way I will feel something in my car.
Right.
Of course, the one day we gotta get new roads over here.
Yeah.
That's a pretty long shift.
It is.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of effort too.
Yeah.
It's an easy car actually to teach someone to learn to drive stick on, just because it's really hard to stall. But yeah, all of the inputs are very heavy. The steering wheel is very heavy.
Honestly, it has pretty good feedback in a shift. I will say, like, definitely as I'm like getting it on the road, it doesn't feel as bad as in first, like to get it going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely much more on the top end.
Right.
It's got good pickup. I mean,
yeah.
Was this 94 to 2021, so 20-some, almost 20-year-old vehicle or whatever, and it seems to be like fun. I could see how this would make a really fun like autocross weekend vehicle.
For sure.
Yeah, that still scares me there.
So the other thing you might discover, depending on how hard you hit it, but coming out of first, that's another thing we got to talk about, but we'll talk about this first. So the stability control or the traction control on the car, like if it senses you sliding, it actually pushes back on the gas pedal. So if you start to feel it loose, you'll actually feel like that feedback on the gas.
Interesting.
Which is sort of a weird thing. The other thing, and I think most modern Corvettes have this too, but in first gear, if you're not past, I think like 2,500 RPM, it'll take you all the way into fourth. It'll like force you to go from first to fourth as opposed to taking you into second. So if you're not past that RPM limit in first gear, it'll shift you over, and that takes a lot of time to get used to too. It drives me crazy personally. But
it's very, like you're saying, very mechanical. You can hear everything on the road. I mean, it's
you can feel everything on the road too.
Feel everything. I like it. You know, it feels connected. Like you can. I feel like from a purist or an enjoyment standpoint, you don't always have to be going super fast to have fun.
Right.
And this seems like a vehicle where you could, push its capabilities and really get the most out of it. It's different. It's long, but it doesn't, like, turning and stuff so far, it hasn't felt like super, like the turning hasn't felt horrible yet.
Right.
But I mean, it's a long vehicle, and it feels like, does not feel small or nimble, but it seems to be driving pretty well.
Yeah. fun car to drive fast. I think the most I've done in this is maybe 85 or 90.
The speed limit. Yeah,
yeah, the speed limit. But I can't imagine it driving much past 100. It's not quite as quite as confidence inspiring as a modern sports car. Like you said, I think it's got around 340 pound-feet of torque, so it's very, it's got a lot of low end.
Mid 50 to 60s, even for today's standards, is not slow.
Yeah.
It's not slow at all. I mean, the new Charger, like the RT, the entry-level V8, that's about what it does. So
right.
It's still I would say this is still a very fast car for sports car standards.
Right.
Do you feel like this is a sports car bargain in today's condition and climate?
It's definitely a sports car bargain. I would say if you are in the market for one and you can afford to buy a C5, that's kind of a no-brainer, just because you're going to end up spending more on maintenance on this car than you would on the C5. And obviously you get more performance with the newer car as well. But yeah, I mean, for $8,000, if you can buy C4s for cheaper than that, this just happened to be, a perfect manual car or whatever. But there's not too many other options that have this level of performance at that price range.
Actually, I really enjoy this in a weird, like, it's got so many, I think I just enjoy that it's got so many funky features to it.
Right.
It feels fun. I can see how this would be a really, like, fun weekend cruiser. Well, alright guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, share this. If you're in the market for a C4, I think you should get one. It's pretty fun. I mean, given the price, given the condition,
right,
this is something I could see somebody who just wants something to cruise around in, have a blast with it. So I would definitely recommend it. Make sure you check out Michael's channel, Michael's socials. I'll put that stuff here. But thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later.